Right, so many, including myself, have raved about the M2 Mac Mini being a stupendous deal because Apple gave us a surprise price cut. And while I do stand by that, and I do think it's one of the best new Macs you could buy, if you're willing to buy used or refurbished, there might be another deal you can look out for because this guy, the M1 Mac Mini, just became an insane deal because you can now get this for $300. And that makes it the bargain of the year because you cannot get a better computer on the Windows side for $300 that has equal performance to the M1 chip. So yeah, let's delve into why you should be buying the M1 Mac Mini in 2023. So yes, as is the case for many products, as they get replaced, their price and their resale value decreases, hence becoming better deals. However, in the case of the Mac Mini, because we got a surprise price cut with the M2 version, that brought down the price of the M1 version even further than we expected. So yes, I checked eBay, and while the market has not completely adjusted to the pricing of the M2 Mac Mini, I am starting to see sales of M1 Mac Minis for around $300. And that's insane value, guys, because I still use an M1 MacBook. I have the M1 MacBook Air that was released back in 2020 and it still performs like a champ with no performance issues. I actually edit all my 4K videos on this machine, and so if the M1 can still handle that, for most basic users looking for their first Mac, or of course looking for a basic desktop machine, the M1 Mac Mini is definitely worth buying. And yeah, it just blows my mind how cheap this is. And like I said in my video about the M2 Mac Mini, the great thing about these Mac Minis becoming cheaper for us is that it makes these Macs more accessible for creatives and those planning to start a business, maybe start developing apps, maybe start making music, maybe begin a YouTube channel like this. Basically, for those wanting to try something new and don't want to spend a ton of cash on equipment, you can now get this for $300, and it offers more than enough performance for those beginning creative work. And it would have honestly been a game changer for me if I could, of course, begin a YouTube channel with the performance of M1, because that would allow me to do more complex edits, get videos out faster. So the fact I could do this all for $300, that's pretty insane. And then eventually, when you do max out the M1 chip, you can sell this for a good price and make your way to the higher end Macs. And so yeah, this is a nice stepping stone for those beginning creative work. Now yes, I know some may be cautious about buying used, and I do understand that, and for those who are worried about that, the base M1 Mac Mini is on Apple's refurb store, and of course, those products are basically new and offer a 12-month warranty, so for those who need that peace of mind, that is an option to consider. However, I will say the price is a lot higher for this. It's $469, which in itself is still a pretty solid deal because for those who can't get access to the education discount the M2 Mac Mini offers, $469 for this is still pretty solid value. However, I would still recommend going used because unlike a MacBook, this has no battery inside. Dents and scratches to the body are a non-issue because it's a box, and for one, most consumers are not going to be damaging this and moving this a lot like MacBooks, but also if it is damaged, it causes no issues to the actual performance of the machine. And so yes, for the Mac Mini, I still think it's worth gambling with the used market and see if you can get a much better deal. Now for those wondering how about software support, I honestly think we could see 10 years of support for the M series Macs. And so considering this Mac's only on its third year of support, I still think there's years of macOS updates left, and you should not worry about this. And remember that Apple is still releasing M1 devices till 2022 with the iPad Air 5, so of course, M1's still a very capable chip, and it should see years of support. And like I said, M1 performs like a champ. I've had no issues with my MacBook Air, and my brother, who's a student, uses this machine on a daily basis and has never complained about it. And so yeah, that should tell you the reliability of these machines. Even for those who are non-techies, this machine's perfect. And actually, do remember the Mac Mini offers slightly better performance compared to the M1 MacBooks because of the additional thermals, and so it's kind of crazy, the best performing M1 Mac is actually the cheapest one to buy. And by the way, for those wanting the raw benchmarks and how the M1 compares to the M2 chip, The single core is 1651 for the M1 and 1951 for the M2, and the multi-core is 5181 for the M1 and 9003 for the M2. Now yes, on paper that seems like a big upgrade, but guys, I'll be honest, I don't think most of you guys will see a big change. I did use the M2 MacBook Air for a bit, and I saw no performance differences when it came to real life usage, and so yes, M1's still plenty good. And actually, in some aspects, the M2 Mac Mini is a downgrade compared to the M1 because the base M2 now has a slower SSD similar to, of course, the M2 MacBooks. Essentially, with the M1 models, Apple was using 228GB NAND chips, but now they're using one 256GB NAND chip, and that basically lowers the read and write speeds by up to 50%. Now, to be fair, I don't think this is a massive issue because, number one, most regular consumers are not going to see a big difference, but also number two, Apple did give us a price cut, which was not the case with the M2 MacBooks, hence why I was a little more annoyed about this back then, but considering the Mac Mini got a price cut, the slight compromise with the SSD speeds is not a massive issue. But this news does help me further solidify my point that you should get the M1 version if you're looking for the base configuration because yes, you might be getting a slower chip, but you do get 2 NAND modules. So yeah, that's about it guys. I'm going to be recommending the M1 Mac Mini for most who of course want an affordable desktop machine, but tell me in the comments below guys, what are your thoughts regarding this bargain? Anyways, let's delve into your questions. So Opus Digital Audio says, tech question, can the M1 MacBook upgrade its Wi-Fi HDMI ports with the M2's Wi-Fi 6E and HDMI upgrades? Curious. And well, I personally doubt it. I remember Luke Miani putting an M2 motherboard in an M1 MacBook Pro because it should theoretically work, but for some reason it didn't, and so I'm sure that Apple's put software locks in place to prevent you from upgrading your M1 MacBook, and so yes, unfortunately I don't think that's possible. So Eric says, do you think the next iPad with OLED screens will be more powerful than the MacBook 2024? Now, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this. As Apocalypse says in the replies, the screen has nothing to do with the performance, and well, Eric kinda clarifies by saying that he's talking about the iPad Pro with the M3 chip, and how that compares with an equivalent MacBook. At least that's what I got from the reply, but anyways, in terms of performance, on paper if you're comparing the M3 MacBook Air with the iPad Pro, they should be similar for the most part. But remember, macOS is a lot more flexible and uses the power of the M3 chip, whereas the iPad's likely going to be constrained. And screen-wise, if we do see OLED on the MacBook Air like some reports have suggested, which by the way I don't believe, but anyways, if we do get it, it should be similar screen tech, except the iPad Pro should see 120Hz, and the MacBook Air should stay at 60Hz. However, honestly, if I had to choose between these two products, I would instantly go for the MacBook Air as my sole computer because macOS is much better than iPadOS. Anyways, thank you for watching guys, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the link above on details regarding the M2 MacBooks, and on that note, see ya peeps.